Hello, WordNerds, and happy Sunday, and welcome to our Sunday special. We are going to be talking about, in case you haven't guessed by the title of this video, killing your characters, character deaths, the do's and don'ts, what makes a good death scene, and what we really want to avoid when writing death scenes. So, just a warning, big flashing lights. There might be some spoilers in here. We will try to put on our spoiler mustaches every single time we talk about a character death spoiler, and you can mute your computer until the mustaches are off, and it should be safe, and we'll be done talking about spoilers until, you know, another mustache pops up on the screen. So keep your eyes peeled for mustaches. They will be your warning. And that is the caveat to this, or what Emma's got going on. That is also something happening tonight. So we are going to start things off with the very first advice I've ever read about killing off characters, and I think everybody should start off with this advice, is ask yourself, do I need to kill this character? Do I have to, like, this character, in this scene, in this book, do they have to die? Yes? Maybe?
Yes.
What is the first advice that you guys have heard about killing characters? Like, the #1 thing you've ever been given?
Mine is similar to yours, is that not only do they have to die, but like they have to serve a purpose to another character. Mm-hmm. So they can't just die and be like, oh, that random person died. It would be, oh, he died, but she's like either really heartbroken or now he can't complete the quest and this person has to. And it has to serve some type of a plot-driving force behind the death and not just, you know, George R.R. Martin killing everything. And
but George R.R. Martin killing, like, that... I was thinking, like, what's the point there? I just thought the point is that people die.
Yeah, and it's also clever because you never feel you're safe in that book. Like, most books are like, oh, they're not going to kill this character because
and I know he's talked
character.
about, like, that's what he wants, is for no one to feel like the hero is safe. Because a lot of times when you read a book, it's like, oh, the hero's going to prevail. But in George R. Martin's books, he doesn't.
Maybe not. Anybody else have...
One of the big things that kind of goes along with like what everyone else has been saying is, like, don't just kill characters just for like the impact of it. Like, don't just do it just because, I'm going to shock people and I'm going to make readers sad. I want to make readers cry. Like, that's not a good reason to kill off a character.
No.
Because it's gonna feel forced if that's the reason you're doing it.
Yeah, and I think oftentimes if you're killing a character for shock value, that's a character that doesn't need to be there in the first place.
Yeah.
Like, if you can lose them just like that, then... Like, it should be hard for you to kill off one of your characters.
Yeah, it should be hard. Yeah.
Should feel the anguish.
Yeah.
It's like, this is a spoiler, but it's a really old spoiler, so if you haven't read Order of the Phoenix for some reason...
No!
I've read but, like...
Spoiler mustache anyway!
Okay, I'll put it on. Okay, because J.K. Rowling, like, cried for days and weeks, however long, when she killed off Sirius Black. You know, like, she said before, like, she just cried a lot about it, and her husband was like, if it's making you so sad, why do it? And she's like, because I have to do it for the story. So it should make you that sad. It should make you cry as the author.
And that it was like an important death because it removed another father figure from Harry's life.
It like removed like a crutch, because Harry, like, his father figures tend to be crutches for him, you know, like, so he had to do it on his own.
Yeah.
Okay, but since we're already talking Harry Potter.
Wow, the spoiler mustaches are on.
Mustaches are on. Okay, so the last book, so many people died.
Yeah.
And I disagreed with how many people died. Actively.
You know who I was really, 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 really upset about? And this might have been just on a personal level, but Remus?
Yeah.
No.
I don't know if I disagreed with, like, how they died.
Yeah, I just...
Or with the fact that they died, but more like how they died.
Yeah.
For me, that was more about she's killing them for the sake of, oh, and then you've got another poor little orphan in the next generation.
Story comes full circle.
Yeah. Like, it's just for the sake of having that there. I feel ridiculous with this mustache on.
But at the same time, I also feel like people had to die in that battle because it was a huge battle, and so main characters were going to die. So I do respect her for that, like, it made sense. It wasn't like, why did that person die? Like, it made sense that they would die. It made sense that
it wasn't something
Greg would
crazy
die.
like,
It made sense that people would die.
piano just fell on 50 people. Yeah, they're dead.
Yes, that would be different.
With the plot and the theme and the moment of the book. Which brings us on to the main topic of this entire conversation, which is good reasons to kill off a character versus bad reasons. And look, I came prepared with notes. That is how much I'm excited about this chat.
The most.
Mustache off, because this is not a spoiler.
We're done with spoilers, I guess.
I forgot my mustache was on.
She really wants to.
So, I've got a couple reasons, good reasons to kill off a character. I'll run down them real quick, and then we can discuss in depth. 1, it advances the plot, for example, Harry Potter, or it develops a character, like Batman, you know? It fulfills doomed characters' personal goals, like Obi-Wan Kenobi in Star Wars. It motivates other characters, again, Uncle Ben in Spider-Man. It's fitting consequence for the character's actions up to this point. I don't have any specific examples, so I'll take my mustache off. It emphasizes the theme, like the Hunger Games or Harry Potter, and it creates realism within the story world, like, again, the Hunger Games.
You're not giving people a lot of warning with these
spoiler.
To be fair, none of those were extreme, like, in-depth spoilers.
Those last few was like, someone dies in these books.
Plus, if you haven't seen Star Wars yet, like, what are you doing with your life, really?
That is a good point. You should have seen Star Wars by now.
If you don't know who dies in, like, the first, like, 15 minutes of Spider-Man.
Yeah. Because, I mean, there have been a couple
You had lots of opportunities to see.
And the others were just broader, like Harry Potter people die, or Hunger Games, like, most people die.
In case you don't know, people die in the Hunger Games.
Spoiler alert.
Just a quick comment though, because we had a couple people getting angry that the video was starting soon for so long. We still start at the same time every evening. We just set up the video earlier, so we apologize if you were waiting for someone had to comment 2 hours ago that I keep saying starting soon. So we still start at 7:30 Eastern Standard Time.
Yeah, I just set
more or
it up
less
before I go to church so that I can start it immediately when I get back.
So Google doesn't punch us in our face.
Yeah, because Google is sometimes not fun or nice.
We have struggles with Google.
Does it let you set a start time when you start it, or?
You can, but I'm not sure if it'll send you live immediately. So I need to try it on like an off day.
Yeah.
All
right. So yeah, sorry about that. Carrying on.
So good reasons to kill a character. What do you guys think are some solid, like obviously what I listed, what are some good examples of character death that you have had? You don't have to be specific, but just like circumstances surrounding character death. What do you think is a good reason to kill off a character? Because that's a hard thing to do in a book when your readers have grown to love them. Hopefully, grown to love them.
This is going to have a big Mockingjay spoiler. So if you
Mustache is on?
Get out. Okay. I really, really liked Prim's death. I thought it was perfect in keeping with the rest of Katniss's character development. Because so often in the first 2 books she was like, I'm not doing any of this for me. I'm not doing this for the people. I'm doing this for Prim. Like, I'm just trying to get Prim. And so when she does like actually start fighting, she has to like start making these decisions for herself and like really understand like why she's doing things. And once Prim dies, it kind of like throws her into like fully having to come to terms with like herself and what she's doing.
Yeah.
So I really liked that. Okay, that's all the spoilers.
I always like a death that feels like the author isn't just throwing it out there to be like, oh, now I'm going to stab you in the heart, or that doesn't backtrack and resurrect the character later. I like it when it makes sense in the story, like you could feel something awful is going to happen, the character dies, and you're devastated about it, but not like, well, this is stupid, why am I even reading it, you know? A book that still lets you enjoy the story after they're dead because it felt right, even if it felt so wrong.
Yeah, actually, the first one comes to mind, and it's proves a lot about the type of person that I am. I don't know if I need a spoiler mustache for it, but I'm going to go beard for it. It's Harry Potter, and it's I believe it was Deathly Hallows, right? When Hedwig died?
Yeah, worst death ever.
worst death ever, because to me it was just like, oh, let's just kind of like get the bird out of the way because we're not really going to need him. And I was like, but no, it's an animal. That can't happen.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, Mad-Eye Moody died.
They
Okay,
have a
whatever.
point behind it, though.
I
Like,
miss
the
him,
killing
but
the last of his childhood, you know? Because that was his... Throughout the entire series, kind of his childhood was Hedwig, since he didn't really have much of anything before. And Hedwig grew with him and was always
like
there
the first
for him.
real gift he ever got.
Yeah.
Well, I'm
Well,
still upset about it.
yeah.
It did make me really sad.
You know.
I think I'm always really, really impressed when authors can portray deaths that match the tone of the rest of the series. Because, like, for me in Hunger Games, the deaths portrayed there, they were very fast and frantic, and that, like, made sense to me because of the tone of, like, the Hunger Games. Like, everything is fast and frantic. Whereas, like, in Harry Potter, save for the last book, the deaths were very, like, a lot of attention was given to them, and you had a lot of time to, like, mourn the loss of the characters, just like Harry had a lot of time to think about it.
We've got a comment from Dana. She says, if it's a specific genre, sometimes death needs to happen, in abundance even, like horror or zombie stories. If no one dies in a zombie story, that's unrealistic. So that, you know, that is something
Definitely.
that each death in a genre like that doesn't have to be so significant. You know, if it's a main character, maybe more significant and meaningful, but if it's just, you know, people die in wars or apocalyptic.
That's actually something that bothered me, and I think it bothers a lot of people about the Twilight books. Is it's like it's a vampire story, and not enough people die in it. Like not enough of the like
None of the main characters.
Yeah, they like all make it, and you're like, that's not realistic at all.
Like, Charlie should not have made it. Like, natural selection should have gotten him a long time ago.
But they did it well for Breaking Dawn the movie, because they got me when I went to see it. Because I'd read the book, and I was I think everybody was frustrated that
got me, but then I was
died.
still disappointed at the end. I was
like,
wait,
like,
I was like excited. I was like, yes, people died.
No,
It did make more sense in the book when, like, nobody dies, they just stand there, they talk to each other, like, well, we're out, peace. But in the movie, you know, like, Arrow, seemingly a smart vampire who's lived all these years, would see the future in Alice and be like, oh, well, so... not today. Back out of here.
Yeah. But I think it just definitely doesn't fit the genre. Like, if I'm reading something with vampires, I kind of expect a little bit more action.
At least around the main
700-page book.
Yeah.
Somebody's gonna die after
in
I've had to read
earlier
all this.
books, like, people dying from the rogue vampire attacks, but nobody that they knew personally.
Yeah,
so it's like
characters, yeah.
mustache gone. Do we need to do mustaches for Twilight? I still will. Just
Do people care if we spoil that?
So that brings us on to bad reasons to kill a character. We've already mentioned this one, just for shock, or shock and awe / awe, sadness. Like, oh no, I'm so sad. My emotions, all the feelings.
Yeah, I mean, does that go along with that saying, like, kill your darlings? I mean, I don't necessarily agree with it because, like we're talking about, you have to have a reason behind it.
Yeah, well, the kill your darlings is like, if it's unnecessary in the story, even if it's your favorite scene ever, kill it. But it's not like, this is my favorite character ever, so I have to kill him. You don't. You don't have to do that.
Yeah, like, I don't know if authors do this, but, like, sometimes I'm reading and I feel like they're building up this character to make you love them, only knowing that they're going to kill it and you're going to be totally heartbroken at the end.
Yeah.
Like, that's not... It's effective, but...
And this isn't a really spoiler, since nothing happens, but that's what I thought Cassandra Clare was doing in the Infernal Devices series, not the Mortal Instruments, but the Victorian piece. There was a character in there, and I won't name him by name, who I thought they were going to kill while he's young, and he's not going to have a full life, and this is just going to, because I love him so much, sure, you're going to take him away from me. You're making him perfect so you can crush my life. And I was glad that didn't happen, because, or not in the way that I expected it to, at least, so it was better.
Yeah, so I would say, like, if readers can guess who you're going to kill, then it's probably a bad thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if they're like, oh, I can tell they're going to kill this person because they're making me like them too much, then that's a problem.
Or like, killing a character, particularly a major character or a main character, because you think that it is an admirable way for someone to die.
No!
I wonder what you're talking about.
What could you possibly be talking about?
Yeah, I don't like the sacrificial death. That can be a bit over dramatic and what's the word I'm looking for? Not conceited, but
this vague death we're talking about, but will not name. I don't necessarily disagree with the death. I just disagree with everything else about how it was handled.
I agree, because I felt like that was the natural arc the character was going to take, but the way it was done was just like so melodramatic, and it's like, I'm doing this for you, and it's like...
And it felt so unnecessary, too.
Yeah.
It didn't make me feel like it had to happen.
I'm so frustrated again.
It made me feel like the author wanted it to happen.
Yeah.
Wait, can we just put on our spoiler mustaches? Don't say what it's a spoiler for until the mustaches are on.
All mustaches are on.
If any of you have watched enough of our videos, you probably know what we're talking about.
Alright, now that all the mustaches are on, Allegiant, you guys.
I feel so angry.
And we have been raging about this book for how long now?
And this is the first time we've ever actually said it out loud, and it's so refreshing.
Yeah, and I can't name a name because my sister's here and she hasn't read the book, but the death in Allegiant. I'm getting, like, overheated with...
And I know a few of you mentioned seeing it coming because of the second point of view, right? So that definitely counts in that.
Yeah, no, I definitely saw it coming, and I mean, I think from the beginning, also, I was like, oh, here we go.
It was like the switching viewpoints. It was also like it was like the way her like relationships were playing out with people, particularly with 4. It was kind of like, I don't know. I just got like this feeling the whole time. I was like, yeah, she's totally gonna die.
Everything was wrapping up in a very like finalized type of way.
Yeah.
And in like interviews and stuff, she talked about like, oh, Harry Potter should have stayed dead. I think that would have been a much more like honorable thing for him to do. Was if
and I don't think it would have been.
Yeah.
And I don't think
he died thinking he would stay dead.
Yeah.
I wanted him to die and stay dead until Lupin and Tonks died. And then it was like, oh, they're leaving an orphan and he's the godfather, he has to live. That was the point when I knew he would make it. Anyway.
Like, none of us really had a super problem with the idea of Triss dying. So, like, how do you guys think she could have done it more effectively?
I feel like if it was, I don't know, she's talking about honorable death, Veronica Roth, and I don't feel like that was an honorable death because there was a missed chance for character redemption for somebody else.
Yeah, it would have been an honorable death for him.
I felt like it was almost a selfish thing to do.
It did kind of feel like she was like, I can't handle it if he dies for me, so I have to take that from him.
And also, you know, they sent the other person, again, I'm using vague words because my sister doesn't want to get spoiled. They sent the other person away so that they could do this, knowing full well this was goodbye without saying, like, hey, this is like goodbye. I was like, this is stupid. Just talk to each other. You could solve so many problems with just a couple of words.
Even in like the way it was actually handled, like don't have her be immune to the death serum and then shoot her. Like,
I don't know. I actually kind of liked that.
I hated the death serum.
I hated that. Like, I didn't think it made sense that she could, like, avoid the death serum, but I liked that she was invincible to so many things but couldn't stop a bullet.
Yeah, I liked that idea, but I didn't like the immunity to it because it felt like special snowflake syndrome, you know, like...
Yeah.
And it's not like
you can do this.
You're immune to poison because you're immune to mind control. Like, it's not, there's no correlation there.
No. Like, if I can block other people from reading my mind, I still might die from, like, anthrax.
Yeah.
So...
And also, I think the other issue was just that, like, no other options were discussed. It was just like, nope, one of us dying is the only way we can do this.
Yeah,
we have to do it right this second.
We have to do it right now.
It was a question of, like, did this character have to die? No. There are 1,000 other things that could have happened, but I want to kill them. So they're going to die, and people are going to be so sad, and everything afterwards is going to be like, oh, I'm
And I
so
didn't cry at all.
depressed and upset.
And
And it's
instead,
like,
it just made me angry.
yeah,
Yeah.
I felt nothing. I'm like, this is stupid. I'm done.
I was like, it doesn't feel
Why are you still
necessary.
gonna let your sister read this book? There are so many better books she can read.
I know, and I've told her, but she still wants to read it because she started the series. I'm like, I get that, but I could tell you and save you a lot of time.
Yeah. It's like
Wait
when
for
Harry
the movie.
died, like, if he had stayed dead and everything, like, when Harry died, it made sense. Like, it was the only way it was necessary.
Yeah.
When Tris died, I was like,
And
there were a
then-
million other ways this could have worked out.
And with Harry's
They
death,
also worked around it for 7 books until it's like, we're
Yeah,
out of
that's
options
exactly
here,
what
buddy.
I was gonna say too.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's
They
like
tried
that's
other
the
things.
only way from like book 4 or 5
Mhm.
that he could have handled it.
Yeah. Allegiant, it was like a split-second decision.
Also, Allegiant, Triss's death is not the only one that pissed me off.
Uriah!
Yeah.
Him and this one's not a huge spoiler, but Tori.
Mhm.
Yeah, that bugs me.
Very like
Right before they find her brother.
Like,
It's like, that's not the main one.
I feel like the only reason that death was there was for foreshadowing, so they could have the line about when a bullet comes, you can't dodge it.
Yeah, and that's that was a character who so many characters in there. And like, did this need to die? Did they need to die in this scene? In this? No, but let's kill them for fun.
Yeah. I feel like without Triss dying, the other character deaths would have been more okay. But
Yeah.
because they got so overshadowed by the main character dying, it was like, what was the point of the rest of those deaths?
Right from the beginning, Veronica Roth was kind of going for the nobody's safe, but I never felt it the same way as I did with Harry Potter or George R.R. Martin. Or it just felt like she was killing people for this is a book that kills people.
Yeah, I think it felt to me like she was trying to be edgy with the decisions to kill all of these characters that people love, and I was like, it's not edgy if it's like, I feel like you're so aware of like, oh, I'm doing this to upset people. Do you know what I mean? Like, it didn't feel genuine, the deaths, and that's why I think I got like really upset, because it didn't feel like the natural progression all the time.
I actually watched an interview with Veronica Roth. It was like a live chat where people could ask questions, and she was talking about killing off Uriah specifically, and she was talking about how he was supposed to die like really early on, but she loved him so much that she had a hard time doing it, and that's why his death kind of got held out for so long. It was like the book was over, and she was like, oh, I guess I have to deal with this now.
I don't like that.
I disagree, because, like, okay, I can't disagree with how she feels about it, but, like, like you change the story as you go. Adapt to that. Don't be like I feel like the same with Triss. She felt from the beginning she had to kill Triss, so she killed Triss at the end, even though after actually writing those books, it didn't make sense anymore.
Yeah. It's like she stuck too much to her guns, and it's like, you've got to be a little loose, like, be sturdy in your plotting, but looser in how it changes over time. And I think some of the deaths, and we should probably take mustaches off in case anybody has us muted for this long. So no more spoilers, we're free.
We're done with our
This is the next bad reason to kill off a character, is just because you have an extra/pointless character that you need to get rid of, or as I say, the lightening of the load death, where you're just like, oh, I've got like 12 characters and I really only want to focus on like 4 of them, let's kill off all of these guys. Ship them off to Deadland.
It's like I don't want to take the time and decisions to actually pull all these characters out, so I'm just going to kill them.
It's like the lazy thing to do with characters, and I get, being over your head in I have too many characters and plot lines to juggle, but find a better way to get rid of them than like, I guess I gotta kill them off.
No.
It's a mean thing to do with your characters, my friend.
Yeah. Give them the deaths they deserve.
Yeah. And then this one is the last reason I have for that I came up with bad reasons to kill a character. Just to solve a problem. If a character is too difficult or they're in the way of the main character, and it might be tempting to just kind of kill them off, but that could be too easy of a solution to the main character's problem, just like killing them. And also, if you can't figure out a way to save a character, like she's hanging off of a cliff, and you're like, well, I don't know how she'd pull herself off, and you're just like, I guess I'll have to kill her then, since I can't think of a way to save her. Be more creative. Like, don't get lazy with your characters. Think of them as real people, and don't just be like, well, there goes another one.
I had in a manuscript that I wrote a while back that is shelved and possibly will never see the light of day. I had a main character, and I had a boy who liked her, and I had a boy who I wanted her to end up with, but I didn't want like a love triangle thing to ever be there.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, well, I'll just kill off this one boy because he's like her best friend, and it'll be like a really powerful death.
Yeah.
And like as the story was going on, like it was super hard to be like, no, I'm just doing that to make it easier for her, so she doesn't have to like hurt anyone.
It's a convenient death, and those are the worst because you're like, oh, the only purpose it's serving is so that this is easier, and it's an easy trap to fall into when you're like stuck in that place in the manuscript and you can't figure out a way around it. So early on in drafts, kill that character, but come back and bring them back somehow. try to not
in your revisions.
Explore like 20 different options.
Not resurrection. Don't like resurrect them.
No.
Bring them back, but not through resurrection.
Unless it makes sense in your story somehow.
Yeah.
If that kind of thing goes on in your story.
Like maybe like reincarnation or something comes back in like a body.
I'm trying to think of YA examples of like resurrection, but nothing's really.
The only one I can think of, and this isn't like within the context of the story, but what's it called? Anna Incarnate by Jodie Summers. That's not her last name, is it? Jodie. No, it's not Foster. Nice try. Anyway, that series is all about incarnation. So were a character to die in that series, they're not necessarily dead forever until like later books when it's like you might be dead forever.
Yeah.
Because of things. But
it's like TV, you see it a lot in like especially like supernatural type shows. Like, Supernatural. Or like Buffy, it happens, but she's the title character. You know they're bringing her back.
Yeah.
Or I think at the end of the season of Castle, you think he's going to be in peril. But,
he's not going to be dead.
But the show is called Castle.
Yeah.
You can't really have the show without him.
Same with House.
Yeah. Or like Dexter, the entire time I was watching it, I was worried about him getting caught, but I was never worried about him being killed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Grey's Anatomy is
Speaking of character death, Dexter, that show.
Yeah, that's got a lot.
Should I put a spoiler on, or are we specifically keeping it to books? Because
we can do spoiler, just in case.
Yeah.
You don't want to.
Never hurts to wear a mustache.
Yeah. So I watched all of the seasons of Dexter, and I was really into it. It did start getting a little bit towards the end, but the thing that got me the most of all was how very simply and like nonchalantly his sister died.
Yeah.
Like Deb was this driving force for the whole show, to where sometimes even when the show wasn't that great, her character made me want to keep watching. Like she was so.
I knew she was gonna die though. I was like, they're gonna take everything.
That would have been fine. I'm fine with the fact that she died. I'm not fine with how she died.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like it just, I don't know. And the way that the body was disposed of, that was like, all right, I hate you. I don't like you anymore. So yeah, I mean. So that's another rule. Like, if you don't want us to absolutely hate other characters, there you go. Mustache is off. So one big rule: if a death happens, unless you want us to hate like another character, don't do something really crappy with the death.
Yeah.
That's as big as possible. Because even though this one character died, we could still form very real opinions on the characters that are still living and how they relate to and how they deal with that person's death.
Yeah, exactly. The ripple effect of the after. Which brings us to our, now that we've discussed what makes a death great, or not, not great, but well written, versus what makes it terrible and just the worst, how exactly do you do it? And step one we're going to talk about is enamoring the readers to your characters before you kill them, because if we don't care about a character alive, we're not going to care if they're dead. And go!
I think that also... Go ahead.
I've been talking a lot,
Yeah. I think that also goes along with, a writing role, that if you get to a point and you're trying to kill off a character and you realize that well, you don't really care, then that character doesn't belong in the story at all anyway. You need to fix something along the way.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't necessarily agree with stringing us along on purpose, knowing you're going to kill off the character, but we do actually need to care about the character, because otherwise when it dies, it's going to be like, well, I'm glad that's over. Let's get on to more important things.
Like if someone just comes on, they're like, hello, my name is this, and here's my backstory, and then immediately they're like shot in the face, and you're like, all right, that person's dead. I didn't care about them, and now they're dead, so I feel nothing. You know, you do want to evoke some emotion from the readers. You don't want to play up on it and really ham to the readers and be like, don't you love them? Aren't they perfect and beautiful? And then be like, well, they're dead now. Good luck with your tears.
You see, the characters that are going to die and the characters that are going to live need to be treated the same way, you know, because like a person in real life is not less important because they're going to die younger than someone else, you know, like it kind of goes back to that you shouldn't be able to tell that a certain character is going to die either because they're being ignored by their author or they're being like overemphasized.
Yeah.
And I think it's natural, like when someone we know personally dies, it's really easy to be like, they were so perfect, and they were such a good person, and they treated everyone around them with love and respect. But, like, nobody's perfect. No one treats every single person with love and respect. Like, people mess up, and I think it's important to make sure that all of your characters are three-dimensional and flawed and real, because it's okay to be a flawed person and to die.
Definitely. And your characters can think that this character was perfect in retrospect, but, like, you know, throughout the book, they're not thinking, they're like, wow, he's the best. He's so perfect. I hope nothing bad ever happens to them. They're dead. Like, you can have them fight and then have them die and be like, oh my, this person was a great person and we fought and hated each other, but I'm realizing now, like, they were a good person. You know, you can have that in retrospect.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And also, it doesn't have to be, like, straight-up character development, like, all eyes on that character. We could form opinions and emotions for characters through other characters as well.
Yeah.
Like, my emotion for, I mean, I guess spoiler stashes, just, I guess, being safe.
Spoilers on.
Are we out on?
Yep.
There we go. Okay, so in looking for Alaska, I loved Alaska, but most of my opinions were formed through the main character, whose name is completely evading me right now.
Pudge.
Yes. His
Pudge
emotion for her,
controls the
his
weather.
experiences with her is what built up my opinion for her, and not just her actions themselves.
And when you think about Alaska, she wasn't that
Lovable.
She wasn't
at all.
likable.
a lot of people didn't like her. So that character development came through other people experiencing her and proving to you that she's a worthwhile character. So.
Yeah.
Mustaches off. We're doing really great with these mustaches. I hope one of the
love
skills
spoiler stashes.
We're gonna make T-shirts with spoiler stash. It'll be great. So next step of how to do it / pointers of how to kill a character. We've mentioned this before in our discussions, but be realistic. No piano suddenly dropping from the sky. No, like, you know, coyote death. No, oh, they ran into a hole in the wall that was just painted on. It's TNT. Nothing unrealistic. It can be a crazy death, but it has to make sense within the plot and the theme and the world that you've built.
Yeah.
So,
If it was in Wonderland, like a hole in the wall would make sense.
Yeah.
But like in the real world, that doesn't.
No. You also don't want to be too cheesy with the death or too expected, but also not like overly dramatic or graphic if you don't have to be. You know, you don't want to have gore just for the sake of gore unless you're writing like a gory book that fits the theme, then go for gore. But, you know, most of the time you can tell when an author is really like eviscerating their character and just like, yes, he's going to be disgusting and you're going to be so grossed out.
Game of Thrones.
Next up, do not do it solely for a statement on morality. Readers will not appreciate you talking down to them and teaching them a lesson through somebody's death. I think there are exceptions to this, probably, but I feel as a whole, it's usually good not to write anything trying to make a statement or prove a point about something very specific. You know, teach like moral lessons, like this is
like how in all those like old scary movies, like the making out or the having sex couple is always the first one to get murdered.
Yeah.
Like, remember that, Jess?
Only the virgin girl survives to the end.
Yeah, only the virgins survive.
Yeah. And I think if you like really want to make a point with the deaths, like you can do it. Just let like the death itself speak for itself. I think the problem is when you try to get preachy about it and explain it later or something, or have a character go on about it. Just like let it be a thing that people can discover if they really want to.
You know what actually, what book did this well? And this is not a spoiler because I'm not going to name specific deaths because there are a lot of them. The Diviners did this really well. Each death taught like was like a message or a warning. And there was nothing about that felt like preachy and like, we get it. It's don't be this or that or this will happen. But that, I think, did it really well. Everybody should go read The Diviners.
Right now.
In case you haven't heard me say this recently, go read The Diviners. Next one. Don't be trivial or anticlimactic with your death. You know, there should be some build-up. I'm going to put a mustache on for a Hunger Games spoiler. I feel like I had a problem with mustaches on, so spoilers, with Finnick's death because I felt like it was here and gone so quickly that I didn't have time to, like, react. It was also in the middle of a war, so it made more sense, but were that detached from the situation, I think I would have had a huge problem with the manner of his death.
I honestly forgot that he even died.
Did I just
like I remember a few months ago, I don't know if I was talking to you guys or if it was something else I was reading, but someone mentioned that, and I was like, does he die in that book? I completely forgot because it's like so fast that by the time I finished the story, I didn't even remember it. Yeah.
And that was the gator thingies, right?
Yeah, the lizards in the sewer tunnels.
The sewer, right.
Yeah, it's like once people start bringing it up, I started kind of remembering it, but yeah.
See, I just found it so upsetting because he and Joanna were my two favorite characters, and I was like, I know one of you're gonna die, like probably Finnick because everybody loves you. But I really wanted, I don't know, I felt like nobody had time to react, and I guess that was kind of the point, but also like it was over and done so quickly that it took me a minute to realize, like, yeah, he's dead. You know, I had to kind of go back. I was like, wait, he didn't just die, right? It's like, no, there he goes.
I think it's also like, in the moment there like wasn't time for characters to react, but even like later in the story, I mean, I haven't read it in a long time, so maybe the characters react later, but I don't feel like they react to it later after everything's calmed down even.
Yeah. It's just kind of a forgotten death.
Yeah. Like, I feel like the deaths in, like, the big battle in the 7th Harry Potter book, later in the story, there's some sort of reference, whether, it's, like, seeing Teddy at the train station or whatever. There's things to remind you about it.
Yeah.
And to know that the characters have dealt with it,
Yeah. Okay, mustache is off.
We have a good kind of related question from Books R Us right now. How do you write last words, making them not cheesy or cliche?
That is a good one.
It depends a lot on, does the character know these are its last words?
Yeah.
Is he in the process of dying, or
I feel like if it's on their deathbed, they're allowed to be a little bit cheesy, because I feel like if I were on my deathbed, actually no, I'd say some cool joke or something.
It depends on the character development, truly. Like, I don't have any specific examples off the top of my head, but like, if the character is very cheesy and like sarcastic and snarky throughout the book, I would see them saying something along that vein, like on their deathbed. But like, you can't take someone serious and be like, "Don't forget to feed my cats," and then they die. You know? Like, it doesn't really work.
But the best last line ever.
The best last line ever from a real person. John Green mentions it in whichever book they love the last words.
Looking for Alaska.
It's that general, and he's like, they couldn't hit an elephant from over there, and then he gets shot.
I'd also say avoid cliches, like in the
avoid cliches like the plague.
Yeah, arguing with someone and then them dying unexpectedly, and the last thing I said was, "I hate you." That happens so often, apparently.
Yeah, it does happen a lot.
And I think just recognizing that most people don't know it's going to be their last words. And so, like, you don't have to make it something like, I love you, they'll never take it, type thing. It doesn't have to be something like that, because most people's last words are anticlimactic.
I'm thinking of a certain series where I think the last words of the character who we thought might have died were those exact words. I'm not even going to talk about it, because I'm not going to put on a stash for that.
It's not worth my mustache.
But yeah, I definitely think, like, most characters don't know that they're going to die unless they are, like, dying from a terminal illness that is, like, nearing its conclusion. And even then,
to sacrifice themselves unnecessarily.
Yeah, or if they're, like, mortally wounded and laying on the ground dying. Like,
if they have a couple seconds, you can try putting something together, but most of the time it's just like, I'm suddenly dead. So I also think it's really cool when characters think they're about to die and say what they would have said before they die, and then they end up not dying.
You have to deal with it.
Like,
Yeah, and they're like, oh, I said that out loud to you, and you heard it with your face. Let's see, where were we? Don't do it on a statement, don't be trivial. Allow people to react around them. We touched on this.
Yeah. That's really big. Like, I don't want to just feel the death of the character. I want to see the other characters reacting and be emotional with them, because that's what's really going to drive home that emotional compact of that scene.
I don't even look forward to those. Like, it happens a lot with TV more, that, like, the end of the season cliffhanger will be someone's at death's doorstep and it's all very dramatic and they die, and then next season starts a month later, so everyone's already kind of dealt with it.
Yes.
I want to see that.
Supernatural does that so well. Like, one character will die, but it's the other character just reacting, and it's just, oh my god, I was sad, and now I'm depressed.
So that's like one of my biggest pet peeves. It's more of a TV thing than a book thing, but where you skip that real resonance of what has just happened.
And I think it's a chance for, like, such interesting conflict, because like, some people are going to care more than other people, and some people are going to be more vocal about their grief when they might not care as much as a person who's being quieter, and just, like, all of these people bumping into each other all because of this one person.
It's a great way to explore and develop your characters further by asking, like, how would they react to a death? Some people are very stoic, some people bury it, some people pretend it doesn't happen, some people break down and are catatonic. Like, I always give notes, and Kelly will attest to this. When something sad happens in a book, my note will always be, twist the knife. Make it hurt more, make it hurt, like, the characters, let them react and really absorb the impact. It's like throwing a punch at somebody's face and it just bounces off. That's not going to have an effect. It's like the whole, like, whoosh, and you're on the floor, because this is horrible, but great. But horrible.
Read Madly Deeply. Just read Madly Deeply.
No, buy my book. I'm a poor student. We mentioned this also. Avoid resurrections, because, you know, you killed your character. Try to stay committed unless it is in keeping with the theme and tone and genre of your book. Most of the time it won't make sense to resurrect them, so, you know, stay committed. Really, really, really make sure you want to kill off that character before you do. Well, watch out for too many deaths. We've mentioned death can be a good thing, like in zombie movies or Game of Thrones, it's either a good thing or a bad thing. But it can be a bad thing if it's like a bunch of main character deaths. Just, we mentioned a book earlier that we won't bring up again, that just a bunch of main characters start dying and you're like, what's the point? What's the point? Who cares? Who cares anymore? Everybody's dead. I'm done. I'm done.
I saw
too. Oh, you go first.
I was just gonna say, I saw a meme on Reddit of, I guess, after the last big death last season of Game of Thrones, and then someone was just like, screw it, I'm rooting for the theme song, because you get behind someone and then they die. So you get behind someone else and then they die. And it's frustrating. That's part of the fun of Game of Thrones. But
yeah, it really will frustrate a reader, though, because it's like, how many deaths are you going to do before they're just like, I'm done with the series. I've lost too many characters. It's not worth getting attached and.
Yeah, and I would say, like, by the end of the story, there still needs to be, like, at least one character that your readers care about, you know, or else, like, I'm not going to care how it ends if I don't care about any of the people who are left alive anymore.
Yeah. You've got to have someone to root for.
I think, too, you can also take it too far with killing, like, ancillary characters, like secondary on the sidelines type
And
of
only them.
Yeah, I just finished reading The Murder Complex, and this was actually something that I was like kind of about, was that like so many people in the background were dying that I was like, I don't understand why you would want to fall in love with anyone. Like, it doesn't make sense to me that you would fall in love with this person because so many people are dying. Like, why would that be something you'd want?
Yeah.
And something to sacrifice for.
We have a comment real quick referring back to our ripple effect of let your characters grieve. And Jen said, Emma makes a great point. Just because the moment a character dies might happen suddenly, like an accident or in a war, doesn't mean you can't take the time to show the impact it has on other characters left behind. Readers need a beat to mourn with the other characters over this death. So it does give, you're running, somebody dies, and then you need that kind of downtime to like, whoa, impact, and then pick up and carry on. Or die.
Definitely.
I would also say that there are some situations where you need to be careful about having your characters grieve too much in the moment, because there's some situations, like if they're in a huge battle and someone dies and they just completely break down, like that's not a good time for that, and it doesn't make sense if somehow the battle kind of like pauses around them while they're getting time to grieve. So there are definitely situations where the character needs to keep going.
And they can break down like right at the end, like
after it.
They can hold that grief inside until they have that time.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have to be immediate, but make sure it's not like so far removed that you're like, wait, oh, you just okay. All right, now we're dealing with the fact that he's dead.
Because I would say in like a situation like a battle, a lot of people, it wouldn't sink in immediately that someone they care about just died. It would be realistic that it wouldn't even sink in until everything was over because you're so in the moment and the adrenaline's rushing and everything. So it bothers me when a character takes too much time to either like, sometimes it's like grieving over a death, or sometimes it's like, oh, this person told me they loved me, and like, but there's like a battle going on around them. It's like, how are you still alive if you're just standing there dealing with this,
But he said
your enemy doesn't care if you're grieving. They're gonna come kill you if you're distracted.
Yeah.
One of the things that I love is Return of the King spoilers. Is that a thing? This movie's been out a really
and the book has been out for
I just want a reason to put the mustache on again. So yeah.
I love like Éowyn and Theoden, their grievous injuries / deaths. I love the way it was handled, specifically in the movie. There's the part where Éowyn, she's like seen Theoden dying, and she's kept on battling and stuff, and she like passes out, and the battle is over, and they're collecting their dead, and it pans to her brother Éomer. And he just like sees her, and I'm getting like goosebumps thinking about it.
I love that moment.
He throws his head back and just screams, and it's amazing.
It's like the most amazing acting moment, like in the entire trilogy. I don't even know that actor's name, but great job.
I won't name specifics for this spoilers because I know we're gonna be doing this series as a WordNerd book club later on. But there's a moment similar to that. And I won't go into detail, but in the Daughter of Smoke and Bone series, the second book has a death where they can't react right away, and then everything reacts later. Like, everything just kind of falls apart.
Now I'm freaking out, being like, who's talking?
I know.
It's book 2. I'm not saying anything, but it's done really well because, like, the person dies, the people see that this person dies, it's just like, no! And it's like, their grief at that exact instant is violence and rage, and then it's devastation afterward once they get a chance to be removed and not in danger.
Yeah.
I gotta read the last book.
I know, I still need to finish the last book.
I need to get the second one. I still haven't read the second one. Maybe
I recommend it.
I have so many series I need to finish, like.
Yeah.
I've read like 1 or 2 books and I need to like finish them up.
Alright, mustaches off. My last pointer that I had written down earlier. What to avoid / how to do it pointers. Let's talk about some unworthy deaths or deaths that weren't necessary, or stupid deaths where it could have been easily avoided by, say, like a conversation. Should be, well, you guessed it, avoided. Please, please, please. We mentioned this at the very beginning of this chat, but like ask yourself 1,000 different times, do I need this character to die? Work out a million different ways that could be how they don't die, and see if any of them are viable routes, because I feel like, especially recently, people are very willing to kill off characters because it's like, wow, who expected that? So new and edgy, and it's like, it's starting to become almost a cliche. It's like, of course you're
the
dead.
other way, if no one dies in a situation where there should be
Yeah.
death. Not like there's a lot of contemporary shows that kill off characters now and contemporary books, but
I think it just has to feel genuine, and you have to know, like, wow, this was the only option for this character was to die. Like, there was no escape, there was no out, there was no easy, like, oh, well, if you had just, like, done this,
and also, like,
been avoided.
Like, if they lived or if they die, like, how does it affect the story after that point?
Yeah.
And what do you need the story to do after that point?
Yeah.
Don't end your entire book or entire book series on just, like, a death and be like, the end. Unless it's, like, I don't know, a horror horror book, I guess you could do that, but I still feel like that'd be a very unsatisfying ending.
I feel like that would only be satisfying if everyone else had already died and there was no one left to find them, and even then I would kind of want like an epilogue of the police coming or something.
Yeah. It'd be hard to end on just a death and then be like, what?
Just have it like fade to black as the person dies.
well, that's the book in The Fault in Our Stars.
An Imperial
Yeah. And that's how everybody thought The Fault in Our Stars was going to end, which it would just end halfway through, like mid-sentence, and main character is dead. I did not spoil anything because that's not what happened, but that's what everybody was, complaining about.
Well, now you spoiled that that's not what happened.
I'm not saying that somebody doesn't die, I'm just saying that's
How
what
dare you
was
not spoil?
I'm just looking at like a list of
terminal cancer, like terminal means you're gonna die at some point.
Yeah.
I was trying to like look up lists of character deaths, and now I've spoiled a lot of TV shows for myself.
I'm so worried. I just got Cassandra Clare's City of Heavenly Fire, which I have not read yet, but I know that a lot of main characters die, and I'm very, very worried about it because I'm like, I'll see a spoiler on Tumblr, I'm like, no, don't look at it, and I'll like cross my eyes and try to blur my vision because I really want to read it, but I don't want to know who dies and how. But Emma, you've read it. Were those deaths done well?
They were done well. There wasn't as much death as I thought there was, like from what I'd heard before I read it. Like I thought it was just gonna be like this devastating book, and it wasn't as bad as I thought it would be. You'll be okay.
Okay, good.
That's good. Because she said there were like 9 major characters killed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are they like major, like named characters? That's the major.
Characters.
Okay, well,
The
good.
characters I like cared about, but didn't like care about, like, for the most part.
Good. Yeah, that's one that I'm worried about because I have heard so many, and I think that's why I've been reluctant to read it, is because I'm like, if there are so many deaths, is this going to be satisfying at all to read? Like,
Also, that book is just a behemoth. Like, holy
It's so long.
it's huge.
I'm not saying that every single book has to have a happily ever after, but there has to be some kind of positive conclusion, I think.
There's something satisfying about it.
Yeah, even, I'm going to put my mustache on, The Fault in Our Stars spoiler coming up, in case you haven't read it or seen the movie or anything. Even The Fault in Our Stars, where Gus dies, and I cried for 3 hours about it, that ended on a positive note of, I don't know, hope? There was just something at that end. It doesn't have to be like, oh, but we're all happily ever after. That doesn't have to happen. But it can't just end and it's like, well, the end, I guess. Now that we're all sad and cried out.
Throw your book across the room.
Silver Linings Playbook style.
Yes! That's exactly the gif I used after I finished Allegiant.
That would be a good gif for that book. So, a few more points that I read online. This was through research of, like, how to write character deaths. One really good tip I read was someone has to replace, in a way, your main character. Just because he or she is dead doesn't mean that their role is or should be left empty. So, when, I don't feel like I need to put this on, but I'll put it on just in case, Harry Potter spoiler coming up. When Harry Potter's parents died, later on, characters took the role of his parents in different ways. Like Remus kind of stepped in, Sirius stepped in, McGonagall stepped in certain times, Dumbledore. Like there were other. Their role was not like, oh, I'll never have a parent figure ever because they're dead. It was just in different ways. Mustache off.
Mm-hmm.
And, of course, can't stress this enough. Allow people to react around them. There should be a ripple effect after somebody dies. Otherwise, if the characters don't care, why should we care? And know in advance before you write it how it will affect the main character and the main cast of characters. Because it shouldn't just affect, the person who's telling the story or one of the main characters. Everybody should have some kind of response, whether it's like, well, that guy's dead, moving on, or like extreme grief.
And let that ripple effect keep going. Like, if in real life you have a major death, you're still going to be feeling that for years. Like, don't just stop talking about that character because their death isn't a plot point anymore.
Yeah.
Let your characters feel it like you would feel it.
Even if it's just like thinking about them in passing, like, oh, I wish
something reminds you of them. Or...
Oh,
sorry, I took the squeaky thing away, and then she found another squeaky thing.
So cute. I am Meegeek. Just noticed Erin isn't here yet. Erin's in Hawaii.
Yeah.
On vacation. Because she's lucky.
Lucky duck. And
we're only a little jealous.
She's gonna be so tan when she comes back. That's gonna be weird.
Like me.
Or sunburnt. That is true.
I see Erin going more the sunburn route. I think.
Yeah.
We've got a topic or a question that's sort of on topic. What do you think is the worst way to die? Now this is, I'm assuming not like the worst way to kill off a character, but personally the worst way to die. For me, anything around the throat like a noose. I don't know why. You can stab me, you can shoot me, you can cut my head off, but please don't strangle me or hang me. 'Cause,
am I having deja vu, or have we talked about this before?
I feel like we might have talked about it before.
I knew that about you, and I'm like, wait a minute.
Mine,
don't like it.
Mine is drowning.
Yes,
so thanks a lot, Erica. Because one of your books might have made me feel really anxious.
I'm sorry.
So
yeah, the whole idea of like not being able to breathe, like I just can't even. And like but, like taking a breath and only breathing in water, like I just can't. It seems so agonizing.
That is
fire. You're only breathing in smoke, and you're on fire.
Yeah,
This is true. That one's also terrible.
I am looking in the mirror doing my hair, and I see someone come up behind me and douse my house in gasoline and then set me on fire. Like I know my death is coming.
That's a very specific they have to come up from behind in the mirror first. While you're like,
I hate mirrors. I'm so like.
You should never come to my
paranoia
house.
is that someone will see me in the mirror and kill me.
That's my sister's worst fear, is someone popping up behind her in the mirror. So like I'll have to be really loud at night when I'm walking around because naturally I'm a quiet walker. So she'll be brushing her teeth and she'll go to spit and I'll be standing in the mirror behind her and she'll get up to like like I have a heart attack.
Well, that's like, yeah, like, oh gosh, I love swimming, but if anyone ever tries to dunk me in the pool, like, I will, like, claw their eyes out. Like, it freaks me out. Do not try to dunk
One
me in the
time
pool.
your brother pushed me in the pool as a child, your older brother, and I fell in on my back and got stuck at the bottom of the pool. And I've never forgotten.
It's making me a little anxious that we're all talking about the ways we don't want to die, and Kaylin's wearing a spoiler mustache. Like, is there something I don't know?
This is actually that movie Stranger Than Fiction, and we're all actually in Kaylin's book.
Yeah, Kaylin is like taking notes. She's like, now I know how to kill Megan. I'll have Erica pop up in her mirror.
I think the reason why I'm so freaked out about the hanging, like nooses in particular, because when I was little, I did, like, not little, but like middle school, I did a research project on JonBenet Ramsey, and she was strangled in her basement with, like, extension cords. That freaked me out. And then I watched Chicago when I was too young to be watching Chicago, and the only person who didn't do it gets hung, and I'm like, how is that fair? And just, like, the imagery of the gallows and the feet swinging and just the noise and just everything about it and not being able to breathe, and hopefully your neck snaps. But sometimes it doesn't, and you just gotta wait. That's just
Anything where I can't breathe is just awful.
Yeah.
You know, being on fire would still do it for me. No, thank you.
Yeah. Because you like can't breathe and your flesh is getting burnt.
True.
Yeah.
Kaylin, do you have the worst?
I think fire would definitely be one of the most painful ways to go, but I'm more terrified of drowning. So
when I was little, I was really afraid of quicksand. I thought it'd be a bigger issue. I've yet to face that. Everybody's learned about quicksand, and it's like, who's come across quicksand? I think that'd be creepy because, like, you're stuck in there and you can't, the more you try to get out, the more it sucks you in, so you're just like a slow death until you're suffocated. It's like drowning in sand.
Yeah, then you're breathing in sand, which would be really painful.
That'd be worse than water. This is such a cheerful topic. I'm enjoying it.
Oh, man.
So have we really touched on, like, how to actually, like, write it? We're talking, like, overall, like, what the situation should be, but do you have any tips for, like, I guess you're not doing a lot where your actual main character's dying, because that would be awkward for the end of the book, but...
Yeah. I think definitely, like, avoid being overly dramatic in your writing.
Yeah.
Or being, like, cheesy or using a lot of cliches. Then I'll be laughing instead of feeling sad.
Yeah.
Or I'll just be, like, rolling my eyes.
I think it's
What is that?
Sound like a bone?
Oh, puppy. I was going to say, I think if you're thoughtful about your death and, like, it means something to you, it will mean something to the readers. And also, if you're realistic, I think if you're realistic in your death, that's what makes it even more terrifying. Like, when I write character deaths, I do a lot of research about how people die, and I've taken forensic classes, so I know what happens while they're dying and also, like, after they're dead, if their body isn't immediately found. So I think the more realistic you are, and it doesn't have to be graphic, but just imagery and noises and what they're feeling and that kind of stuff can really go a long way. Like, I even have a book that I'm writing coming up where the character's slowly dying from organ failure. So I did a bunch of research on how, you know, the body shuts down and slowly introduce that before you find out, like, oh, you're dying. Great.
No. I would say, in terms of writing advice, don't foreshadow too much. Like,
don't be heavy-handed with it.
Yeah.
You can hint. I love a good hint when you reread it and you're like,
I love it if it's done well, but don't overdo it.
Also, I think unless it's like the main villain character, don't have your characters be like super okay with it or like have no conscience about it unless the character has no conscience, you know? I think it would be good to have, like we said, the ripple effect, but just like have it affect them in some way, even if it's something small. I think that makes it more believable.
Well, and I think even in, like, writing the moment when the character dies, like, think about, like, how your narrator, if it's in first person, like, how they're going to react immediately. Like, are they going to be very analytical about it, or is it going to be like, you know, like, I don't know, I really enjoy, I can't even think of specific examples, but I really enjoy when it's something like the character, it feels so detached from the moment because they're so shocked that, like, all they notice some little tiny detail or something like that. Like, I think that could be really good, because if they're just, if your narrator is just being very straightforward about, like, oh, this happened, and now they're falling to the ground and a bullet hit them, and, you know, like, that can sometimes not feel very realistic, or it's just not doesn't make much of an impact on me emotionally.
Because death has a lot of, like, weird sensory things surrounding it. Like,
and usually if
sounds and smells.
If you see someone die, you're kind of going to go into shock about it a little bit, even if it's a violent death.
Yeah, you may
not be very logical about it.
I'm trying to think of good death scenes that I've read like that. I think Lord of the Flies might have had one. I can't remember enough specifics about that book because I read it way too long ago to know. But I feel like there was something in there where it might have been like a really extreme or graphic death, and the person's just like, all I saw were his eyes.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, that is interesting. Like the tiny detail, that does amp up the like kind of eerie, like weird, creepy, like, oh god, that's horrible factor of it. Writing death is hard. Sometimes fun. Sometimes horrible.
A lot of times fun, though. I think his death just brings a lot of emotions that you don't get to delve into as much with other parts.
And it's always fun when, and this is very wrong in ways, but when a character that you hate dies.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say it's necessarily fun, but it's definitely like, yeah, you got what you deserve.
It's like, I don't have to deal with them anymore.
Yeah.
It's always good when the big bad hits the ground and you're like, we won!
Yeah.
Yeah, but in the same way as I don't want you building up my emotion, in a character to kill them, I don't want you building up my hatred for a character specifically to kill them and me getting relief. So you have to make me believe that character is actually a terrible person. It can't just be, oh, he's not a very nice guy.
Yeah. Here's a Harry Potter spoiler, so mustache, I'm going to put it on. This is a big obvious one if you've even heard of the Harry Potter series. I'm sure you can guess, but when Voldemort died, like, I was happy that he was dead, but also there was a bit of pause because it's like he was still a human being and, how did he become this way? And you kind of, there was enough about him that made him human to have some level of empathy. Even with Game of Thrones, more spoiler, when Joffrey dies, like,
That's what I was talking about. I didn't want to say anything else.
I was excited that he was dead because, God, who doesn't hate Joffrey? But also, like, you had this moment where you're like, but he's a child. When you saw Cersei crying over him, she's like, my boy, and you're like, oh. Like, I'm happy he's dead, but, wasn't expecting that.
Yeah. It was like I had that glad, that kind of relief feeling, but also I was like, someone made him that way. He didn't just, like, was born a complete
I'm pretty sure he's a sociopath.
terrible person.
Sure.
Very early on in his life, but,
The inbreeding
that kind of happened to him. Yeah, well, that's true. But still, that was a long time coming.
Yeah. I just think it's good when you have a character that you hate that you still feel a little bit bad about being dead. I think that's always, like, it shows that you've written a really well-written character, that you're excited he's dead, but you also have, like, this pause of this character is dead.
Still a person.
And it might affect this person, but not this person, but it still affects somebody. They were still a person with a family, maybe. Maybe they had no family, or, their life might have been sad. Something about it that made it slightly like, oh.
This might be, like, totally crazy, but I know, like, watching Voldemort in the last movie when, like, he thinks he's won and, like, Harry Potter rolls over, there's a second where it's like, poor guy, he knows he's gonna die now.
So there's also, this is like a selfish reason to be sad, but I get sad sometimes when the big bad dies because it means the story's going to be over. It's like when Voldemort dies, you're like, oh, well, I guess there's no book left because that's been the whole point of the last 7 books.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting when what you think is the big bad dies, and it turns out they were never the big bad. There was something bigger and badder behind them. I've got a book I'm writing right now that's kind of leaning toward that, and it's a lot of fun to write because you get to kill this character and have the ripple effects of that with, some secrecy happening behind the scenes.
Yeah.
I'm so bad at almost spoiling all of the books that I'm writing.
It's fun to talk about them.
It's so much fun to talk about.
Megan, are you shucking corn?
We have dinner guests coming to the
average word about killing characters. Well, just honestly shucking corn. Let me tell you about character death. Well, we've been going for about an hour and a half, so we can have some final words here if that's what we're... If we have any last questions, ask them below now, and we will have our final comments, and then we'll read back on that and see if there's anything else we need to address. So anybody have any final comments?
I'm sad. I'm reliving all these deaths in my
Don't
head.
be sad.
Yeah, I just relived all of the worst deaths all at once.
But see, it's good to be sad when you have death like that. You don't want a death and you're just like, well, all right then, I guess this character's dead, moving on. Like, it's really, I think it's really cool when a book affects you like that. Like, it hurts in the moment, but think about, you're reading words on a page about people who don't exist, and yet you're feeling like they do. Like, that's really cool.
Yeah. Like, all of you can probably just right away think of who the most impactful character death has been for you, and it still sits with you. Like, for me, it was years and years ago, and I still feel it.
Yeah. I can think of, like, all the deaths that I've sat there just, like, hysterically crying over, and it's like, this isn't real, but it's like, it is to me.
There's one death that I remember, like, physically sobbing, and it was in Harry Potter, and it wasn't human. I don't have spoiler stash on, so I'm not gonna say it, but
no, I got it.
Putting the book down and just being like, why is this happening to me?
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't happening simultaneously to everyone else.
Yeah. You know what got me when I was, and I don't think I need a mustache for this, Where the Red Fern Grows, I read in 6th grade, and when the dogs died, I'm just like, I am out, I'm done, this is over.
I don't like his entrails lying on the floor.
Like, I didn't care about the kid who fell on the axe and died, fine. I mean, like, not fine.
I didn't even remember a kid fell on an axe.
Bunny, like, tripped and fell on a hatchet, and I was like, well, that is gruesome for a 6th grader to be reading, but the dogs, you can't kill a dog, man. That is not cool.
I have a very, very soft spot for animal deaths, like that, so, like, and there's that common, like, saying now that's kind of cliche that if there's a dog in a young adult novel, it's not seeing the end.
What? Well, I'm now gonna write a book with a dog in it, and the dog's gonna live to the end because
I remember
all the humans will die, and it'll just be the dog.
Buttercup and Hunger Games.
Yeah, there was a cover reveal a couple weeks ago, and I think there was a dog on the cover. Maybe it was a couple months ago. I'm not remembering time correctly. But they were like, I would love to read this book, but there's a dog on the cover, and I won't touch it with a 10-foot pole because that dog's probably dying. I don't remember what it was. I have to find it.
After the End has a dog on it?
I know, like, I Am Legend, like, how dare
No. Yeah, I did not handle that well.
That was hard, yeah.
The only part I remember of I Am Legend.
Yeah, same.
That's it. Because it was stupid, and why'd you have to do it? And it was stupid, and why?
To make us hurt.
After the End by Amy Plum has 2 dogs on the cover. So I'm going to guess one dog dies and the other dog gets sad, and then I never read that book again. Nope.
I think the first book I ever cried during, I mean, this could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's the first book I ever cried was The Two Princesses of Bamar by Gail Carson Levine, and I read that in like middle school. But it's like so good because it's so bittersweet. Like, it's sad that the character dies because of the other character who's going to be left behind, but it's like...
Wait, what book did you say?
Which
one did you say?
The Two Princesses of Bamar.
Oh, I thought you said Bridge to Terabithia, which is
no, that's what I was going to say.
No.
Switch it. Because I can't. So wrapping up this chat, I feel like we've given a lot of advice on do's and don'ts of how to kill a character. Some of our most painful character deaths that we've experienced, which were talked about all in mustaches. We did a great job with spoiler mustaches. Let us know if that works for you, because it's our system, and we hope you enjoy it. Bottom line, I feel, of character death is make sure it's necessary, make sure it's meaningful, make sure it's not cliche and over the top and realistic. And did I say this already? But make sure you have to do it. Like, if you don't have to kill a character, consider other ways, because sometimes killing a character is the easy thing to do, and the easy thing isn't always the best. So,
amen.
It doesn't look like there are any more comments, so we will see you guys later this week. We are going on a hiatus. I can't remember the date. I think it's the 11th.
I think after next week's live chat.
Yeah, so it's Monday the 12th.
Starting next week. And then
for 2 weeks.
So next Sunday will be our final live chat before Season 2, which will be coming back even crazy awesomer than we are right now. And I know awesomer isn't a word, but it is in this instance.
But it is.
Yeah.
So we'll be taking a 2-week hiatus. Go through, we'll be tweeting out old videos that you can go and watch during the time, so you can go to Vintage Word Nerds.
Also,
And we'll be having a giveaway, like a huge giveaway.
Yeah, giveaway. So stay tuned for that. Next week, do we have a topic for next week?
I have an idea.
Okay, so we'll announce our topic for next Sunday's chat tomorrow, Monday, which is somebody's day.
Erin?
No.
Okay. Yeah, I saw her video.
Because I'm Tuesday, so.
Yeah. So Erin's video, she will not announce it because she did not record it yet. Or she didn't record the Tuesday. It will be announced because Erin pre-recorded her video since she's
in
Hawaii. So look out for Tuesday. We'll announce. We'll also put it up on Twitter if we find out tonight what we're doing. And we hope you guys will see us here. Again, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, even if it's up early.
7:30 p.m.
Yeah, 7:30. Even if it's up
we
early.
will be here.
7:30. We love you, nerds. We hope you enjoyed this chat. And we will see you next week. Goodbye.
Bye.